Today, I'm ranking fighters in every weight division who are monsters for their weight class and use their size and weight as an advantage against their opponent. Every time I watch weigh-ins, I'm reminded what a feat it is that fighters cut so much weight, and then after weigh-ins, they gain 15, 20, even 30 pounds. Obviously, it's a big advantage to weigh more than your mandatory weight. So, in the spirit of Halloween, I've decided to highlight one monster from every division and rank them according to 5 categories. Before I get started talking about the fighters, let me define my 5 categories. The first category are the fighters who've recently learned to harness their weight and their size advantage. The second category are mythical weight cutters. The third category are zero body fat. The fourth category is called size matters. And the fifth category is freak of nature. Back to the first category, fighters who have learned to harness their weight and size. The first fighter in this category, I gotta scoot this guy over, he's in the way. The first fighter in this category is Peyton Talbot. Peyton Talbot is a bantamweight who is 5'10 and 135 pounds. The interesting thing about Peyton is that he only started MMA when he was in high school, and he's really just now coming into his own. He's new to the UFC. He lost against Raoni Barcelos at the beginning of 2025. He just got out-grappled and he got taken down a bunch of times. He ended up losing that fight and admitted that he needed to work on his takedown defense. So 6 months later, or 5-6 months later, fast forward to the Felipe Lima fight, where he shows tremendous improvement, and it's obvious that he's now learned to use his weight and his height, use that wide stance to defend the takedown. He ended up winning. His next fight is December 6th, I believe, Madison Square Garden against Henry Cejudo. This will be a true litmus test fight for Peyton. Henry Cejudo is a highly decorated, highly accomplished wrestler. Here's the thing. Henry Cejudo is the shortest fighter in the UFC at 5'4". Peyton is 5'10", so he's got a 6-inch height advantage that he should be able to leverage against Henry. So let's see if he uses that same strategy with takedown defense, posting up against the cage so that he can keep the fight on the feet. If he can do so, he will have a tremendous advantage because he's a powerful striker and he should be able to use this weapon against Cejudo in December. My next fighter on the list is Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes is a featherweight fighter at 5'11", which is quite tall for this division. The interesting thing about Diego is that he is foundationally rooted in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Since he was 5, at about 19 or 20, he moved to Mexico to train there, and I think that's where his boxing journey began. What's interesting about Diego is that his debut in the UFC was a fight against Movsar Evloev, who is known to be an outstanding wrestler. And Diego felt very comfortable on his back, which is where the fight mainly took place. He attempted several submissions and he won a lot of fans because he proved himself to be very intent on finishing his opponent. He was very dynamic. Again, the fight was predominantly on the ground. Fast forward to his fight with Volkanovski, and we see Diego evolving into more of a striker, using his weight and harnessing that further to give him a bigger advantage. By the time he gets to his fight against John Silva at UFC Noche, we see Diego has truly become a versatile, dangerous striker, especially in the pocket. He throws powerful combinations, he has great dirty boxing, and then he had that beautiful spinning elbow to knock John Silva out. It's exciting to watch him evolve as a striker and take advantage of that height and weight. As a matter of fact, he's hinted that he wants to move to lightweight. That reminds me a lot of Max Holloway, who also was a featherweight at 5'11" and now is a dangerous fighter in the lightweight division. I see this as a natural transition for Diego, as his sinewy frame could take on some muscle mass and easily be a top-ranked fighter in the lightweight division. Oh, on another note, 3 weeks after his fight against John Silva, Diego Lopes volunteered to step in when Rafael Fiziev dropped out of UFC Rio in the fight against Charles Oliveira. Naturally, that fight didn't happen, but I think that was a testament to Diego's confidence in his ability to gain weight and move up to that next level. The second category are mythical weight cutters. Now, these fighters just have uncanny ability to cut pounds upon pounds upon pounds, and then come fight time, have a lot of their natural size back. The first fighter in this category is flyweight Charles Johnson. At 5'9", Johnson is towering for the average size of a flyweight, which is 5'5". So he's already got this 4-inch advantage. But the interesting thing about Johnson is that he's rumored to walk around at about 180, which would mean that come weigh-in, he's lost a staggering 53 pounds, which is like 30% of his walk around weight. That's just bewildering. Also, Charles is a real prospect killer. 5 of his last fights have been wins, and 4 of those wins were up against rising stars in the flyweight division, one of which is the #1 ranked Joshua Van, giving Joshua his only loss in the UFC. Johnson knows how to use his weight and his size, as most of his finishes come in either the second or third round. He's just weakening and exhausting his opponents and using that to tire them out. The next fighter in the mythical weight cutter category is none other than Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. 1 week after Paddy Pimblett's fight against Michael Chandler, there is a video of him in the morning weighing himself. Again, this is 7 days after the Michael Chandler fight, and he weighs 198 pounds. How is this even possible? That's an average of like 6 or 7 pounds a day. Clearly, Paddy knows that weighing a lot is one of his superpowers because he knows how to leverage this when he's in the octagon. If you go back to 2 of his fights in the UFC, that fight against Michael Chandler and the fight against Tony Ferguson, he's a monster. He just smothers his opponents when he's on top of them. It's hard for them to get out from under him or to scramble. He is huge compared to Michael Chandler, which is interesting when you think about the potential fight with Paddy and Ilia Topuria, because Ilia is about the same height as Michael Chandler, and he was towering. It looked like an adult and a child on the ground in the fight against Chandler. The fight against Tony Ferguson there wasn't quite the same disparity, but still, it was obvious that Paddy was bigger and he used that to his advantage. Paddy is a ground and pounder. He's got really good wrestling, and he is not afraid to get in there and use elbows and ground and pound and wear his opponents down because they're trying to take him down, and that is exhausting for them. That predominantly is the story of how he got his wins against Ferguson and Michael Chandler. Here's the thing with Paddy, though. It's obvious that his weight cutting abilities are second to Charles Johnson, who clearly cuts the most as a percentage of his walk around body weight. But how long is he going to be able to do this? Now that he's, I think, 30, 31, is he going to be able to do this when he's 33, 34? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to come naturally for him. And then he's going to have to move up to the next weight class, which is welterweight. And he's just not going to be able to fight with the likes of Dulatov, fighters who are 3 inches taller than him. I just don't see it happening. That might be a fraud check moment to see if he is able to sustain this weight cutting ability and use this weight to his advantage as he ages. Next category are the lean, mean knockout machines. These are the zero body fat fighters. The first fighter in this category is Atiba Gaudier, known as the Silent Assassin. He looks like the Terminator when he walks into the octagon. He is jacked and ripped and is completely intimidating. He is ferocious at 6'4", and the aura around Gaudier is he's constantly being compared to Francis Ngannou, which gives him this reputation, which makes him even scarier. You know, the funny thing is his fights so far in the UFC have been lamb to slaughter. He was set to fight Ozzy Diaz. He dropped out of the fight. I wonder why. I'm not saying that he dropped out because he was scared, but he dropped out of the fight. They put in a fighter who literally, it felt like a lamb to slaughter, quickly ended in the first round. Most of his fights have ended in the first round, which further augments this reputation that he has. We've not seen much of him. We don't know how he is on the ground. So there's still a lot to be learned about Atiba, but the reputation, the aura around him, and strictly just looking at him says, whoa, this guy is a lean knockout machine. His record so far supports that, and he's got an 89% finish rate. So there you have it. Scary guy. The next fighter on this list is Islam Dulatov. Now, I'm pretty certain that his entire professional career has required that he has 0% body fat. Islam Dulatov was also a runway model for Versace, but he's recently focused all of his efforts in the UFC, and we're so glad he is because this guy is lightning fast and has sledgehammers in his fist. He is always looking to finish his opponents with a record of 12-0. Every knockout has come in the first round except for one, and that came in the second round. Once he's on top of you, he moves into hyper beast mode and he just throws punches upon punches. He also has great timing. In his fight on the Contender Series, he got his opponent up against the cage, landed a bunch of punches, and then came in with a step-in elbow that finished the fight. It was a beautiful thing to watch. And then in his, I don't know if it was his debut fight in the UFC, but it was his most recent fight against Fugit. He landed a surprise left uppercut and knocked him out and then came in for some ground and pound. Either way, this guy is dangerous and he is a lean, mean knockout machine. The next category is called Size Matters. This category, I know what you're thinking, but this category is actually about fighters who can easily transition not only one weight division, but two weight divisions. I mean, if you think about this, it's hard for a fighter to even move up one division, much less two division. These two fighters naturally, without even thinking about it, will easily fight two divisions upward. The first fighter in this category is Usri Belgorod. I have to say, the first time and the second time that I saw Usri Belgorod, I was not impressed. He fought on Dana White Contender Series and failed both times. Dana White was even a little derisive of him, saying that his punches were like pitter patters. And he was fighting a fighter who was an 11-1 underdog, and he just had nothing. He was rail thin. I was shocked that he even made it into the UFC. When I saw his name on the roster, I was blown away. But come fight time, when he fought Azamat Bikoyev in Vancouver, I was shocked. He was literally a different human being. He was well muscled, looked good, looked confident. He's been training with Glover Teixeira at Teixeira MMA, and Alex Pereira is his training partner. And this guy has glowed up. I don't know what Teixeira is putting in the water there, but it is of magical quality because this fighter is really coming into his own. He was sturdy, had a good fighting strategy that night. He was difficult to take down. It looked like an elf up against a giant when Bikoyev was trying to take him down against the cage. Nothing against Bikoyev. I really like him. He was one of my prospects on my top prospect list. But really, this is to say that Belgorod truly shined. I'm going to move this guy up. Stay. So what's interesting about Belgorod is that he's stated to be 6'6". I'm going to show you a picture. Take a look at it right here. He's standing next to Poetan, and Alex is 6'4". He looks a good 3 inches taller than Alex. So that would put him at 6'7". So if he's 6'6", he's really 6.695 because he is giant for his size. And if he continues on this trajectory of improvement, working at Teixeira MMA, I see this guy not only being a contender in this division, but seamlessly moving up to the next division and then at some point heavyweight. I mean, think about it. At 6'6", if he continues to improve, it's a no-brainer. Speaking of Poetan, he is the next fighter on the list of size matters. Alex is 6'4", as I was saying, and we know because this has been all over the media that he does not want to cut down to 205. When you think back to Alex at middleweight, isn't it just a wonderful thing? Like, we've gotten to see this fighter grow and improve and go through ups and downs and evolve in front of our eyes. And, you know, even at middleweight, he was massive. So it's no surprise that he wants to go to heavyweight. Alex has a thick, muscled frame. In every fight I've seen him, I always think he looks like the bigger fighter, and he uses that in his power. Whenever I hear someone say it just hits different, I always think of Alex Pereira because Alex just hits different. There's no one with his power. And I think part of his charm is that big booty that he has that I think works in his favor as it lowers his center of gravity. But Alex is going to be a natural at heavyweight. I see him easily coming in at 245, 250. The fifth and final category is my freak of nature. Now, the freak of nature for me is someone who is big, massive, but isn't compromised in terms of their fast twitch, their quickness, their agility, and their power. And that fighter, my friends, is Tom Aspinall. You know, when I was talking earlier about Islam Dulatov and I said he'll come in and throw punches like crazy and quick punches with a sledgehammer kind of power, that's Tom Aspinall. But here's the difference. Islam weighs 170. Tom Aspinall weighs 255. That's like an 85-pound difference, and he still has that speed. It doesn't compromise at all how nimble he is and how he's able to move around, and he still has got great Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which you don't see in heavyweight. Tom is the unicorn, the freak of nature. If it doesn't work out in UFC or in boxing, the Dallas Cowboys could really use a defensive end after their trade of Micah Parsons. All right, guys, there you have it. There are my 5 categories of monsters in every weight division who know how to use their weight and their size to their advantage. Who did I miss on this list? Is there someone that you think should go in the comments below? Let me know. I'll see you guys. Happy Halloween.